Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. As you might have noticed on my channel, we've been getting a lot more plug-in hybrid and electric cars to review lately, and that's mainly because the industry is obviously going in a new direction. It's obviously going in this electrified direction, and the most recent car to come to us for reviewing purposes following this timeline is of course the Fiat 500e. Now what I love about the 500 in general is the fact that it remained the same over a long period of time. Now the first 500 was launched back in the late 50s, early 60s, and it was meant to be a small city car that was easy to drive, easy to park, and didn't cost a lot to maintain. It's basically the same recipe Mini adopted back in the 50s and 60s. And this car was very successful back in the day. And I love the fact that Fiat kept it going even today. And in late 2020, they unveiled their electric take on this car. And an electric city car really makes a lot of sense because most people only have city short trips to do, and for their use case it makes a lot of sense. This is a small car that's easy to park, easy to drive, and you don't pollute the air where you live, so it's great overall. Now in terms of design, the new 500e comes with a couple of key differences compared to the old model or the regular model, and you'll notice them up front. So you have a split headlight design. It's only the design that implies the headlight is split. Actually, the headlight is on the bottom, right under the hood, and all we have on the hood is like an eyebrow, if you will, that's meant to be used as a daytime running light element. But it looks really good, and you also have these elements over here that are actually the turn signals. Also up front, you will notice that the central grille has been blocked out, and you have a 500 logo on it, and you have another grille down on the bumper that does let some air go through because the batteries under the car need to be cooled at the same time. So you have that. You also have this turn signal on the side of the car, and from the side things look just as you would expect on a 500. Not a lot has changed. What I do want to point out is that the electric version, the 500e, is a bit bigger than the regular model. So it's 3 centimeters wider, 3 centimeters taller, and 6 centimeters longer than the regular model. So you need to keep that in mind. But overall, the proportions are the same, and you will be hard pressed to notice the differences. You also have a 500e logo over here, and you will notice that you don't have a door handle. This car's doors are opening using buttons, and it's the same inside. You have a button that opens the door, and since this is an electrical system, it has a fail-safe, which is a mechanical button on the door panel. Around the back, it's the same story. The design has been slightly reshaped, and you'll notice that in the tail lights that also include a 500 badge, but that's about it. And we also have a spoiler over here that's mostly for show because this car doesn't reach high enough speeds to make anything of it. So yeah, the boot can house up to 185 liters, which is decent for a car of this size. Inside the cabin, there has been a redesign compared to the previous model or the regular model. So we don't have that huge bit of plastic over here anymore. Instead, we gained some useful functions and a new infotainment screen and infotainment system. So over here we have the HVAC buttons. Over here we have the gear buttons. There's no more gear shift lever, just buttons that allow you to select the direction you're heading into. And this is a charging pad for phones capable of charging wirelessly, and it has the Torino skyline included in it, which is a throwback to the origins of the car. We also have air vents over here and a lot of plastic. So there's a lot of plastic inside. It's not the best quality plastic, at least on the doors and on top of the dash. This shiny bit of plastic over here will get a lot of fingerprints and dust over time, so you might want to configure your car in a different way. But the infotainment screen has grown in size. The smallest one you can get is 7 inches, but this is a larger one that's about 10 inches, and it works great, feels great to the touch, easy to use. And the best advantage this system brings is the fact that you can use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly, which is a big plus. Then again, the same cheap plastic can be felt over here. We have some storage spaces, a button for the driving modes. We have normal, range mode, and Sherpa mode, and the volume button over here for the multimedia system, and the parking brake button. The steering wheel is wrapped in eco-friendly leather, vegan leather. I don't know what that exactly means and how it will withstand the test of time, but it is what it is. We have the door opening buttons on the door, and inside these handles we have a little Easter egg with the shape of the original 500 and Made in Torino written right next to it. The seats are made with recycled plastics taken from the seas. That's why you have sequel written on them. They feel nice, look nice, rather comfortable too. And the floor mats also include nylons from recycled plastics. As for the instrument cluster, and this is the last mention for the interior, is digital, has plenty of functions, looks good, and is really easy to read. Has great graphics, and it responds really well to your inputs, and a great definition, and I see no problem with it whatsoever. So yeah, rather cheap plastics on the inside, but there's plenty of room for even taller people. I'm 6 feet tall. The seat is in my in its lowest position possible, but I do have plenty of room inside. I wouldn't fit in the back. I'm not gonna get in the back because I don't fit in there, and this would probably be best sold as a 2+2 car, because four fully grown adults such as myself would not fit in this car comfortably for longer periods of time. But if you have 2 adults and 2 kids, you should be pretty fine. When it comes to driving the Fiat 500e, well, it doesn't really feel a lot different compared to the regular model. Yeah, it does. It is a bit quieter because it doesn't have an internal combustion engine under the hood, and you do sit a bit higher. At least that's how I remember, because it's been a while since I last drove the regular Fiat 500. And I feel like I'm sitting a bit higher than on a regular model. And that may be because of the batteries stored in the floor. Just like we got used to on almost every car out there, the batteries are stored under the seats in the floor for rather obvious reasons. The biggest one being that it keeps the weight of the car as low to the ground as possible. And that matters when you're trying to make fun to drive cars. And the Fiat 500 is a fun to drive car overall, especially in Abarth configuration. But this is no Abarth, this is an electric car. It's an electric city car. So the electric motor under the hood is not extremely powerful as you would expect. Now, there are 2 choices you can pick from in most countries around the world when it comes to electric powertrains. You can have a 95 horsepower electric motor under the hood, or you can have a 118 horsepower engine motor under the hood. The one we're driving is the 118 horsepower model that also has 220 Newton meters of torque. It doesn't turn this car into a land rocket. It will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in about 9 seconds. But you know what? For cruising around town, which this car is, I mean, it was built to be used around town. It's enough. It's pretty zippy. You have instant torque, and it will haul ass when you want it to around town. But it's not a racer. It's not a drag strip monster in any way. And the car suspension tells you that you are driving an electric version of the 500 the moment you hit the first pothole, because the car does get a bit unsettled over uneven surfaces and on terrible roads with a lot of potholes and undulations and so on, because the suspension now has to handle 300 extra kilos of weight due to the batteries stored under the floor. So the suspension had to be reinforced to cope with that weight. The car now tips the scale at about 1.3 tons, which is 300 kilos more than a regular 500, an equivalent 500 if you will. So yeah, the suspension does feel a bit stiffer than you would expect, and it does make the car jiggle around quite a bit over uneven surfaces. And it's also a bit louder than I remember the Fiat 500 being the last time I drove one. So yeah, those are all things to consider if you're thinking about buying one of these cars. The steering is also very light, as you would expect in an electric model, because it is, of course, electrically assisted. But I don't think a lot of people would buy this car because of its handling or great feedback through the steering wheel or something like that. Most people will buy it because it's quirky, it looks good, it makes you feel great when you drive it. And you know what? I do like the way this car drives. It's rather nice. I never felt any sort of intervention from the car's electrical nannies, which means the grip on the front axle is rather decent. But if you do push this car into a corner with more speed than you should, you will feel it understeer, and you actually feel its weight at that time. But most of the time you won't be doing that, so it's actually quite fine in terms of refinement. Speaking of which, the sound insulation could have been better, especially at higher speeds, because at lower speeds you hear absolutely nothing at all, no NVH, no nothing, because you don't have an internal combustion engine. But at higher speeds, over 100 kilometers an hour, the road noise does make its way into the cabin, and it gets annoying at 130 kilometers an hour. So what kind of batteries can you expect? Well, the lower power version has a 21.6 kilowatt hour battery, while the 118 horsepower version, the one we're driving, has a 37.3 kilowatt hour battery. Those are the actual usable amounts you can store in the battery, because they are larger, but they have a buffer like it happens in every single other electric car out there today. So how much do they consume in town and out of town? Well, I can't really tell you, because I didn't have time to do my usual test run with this car, but over the last 947 kilometers, this trip computer shows me that the car's energy consumption was 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers covered. Now, considering the car has a 37 kilowatt battery, that means you should be able to cover about 250 kilometers on a single charge on a daily basis. So yeah, that should be enough, and it's well within the segment today. It should be enough for a city car, that's what I meant. But you know what, if you're gonna take it out of the city, it's gonna burn through a lot more electrons. I'm certain of it, because the top speed this car has is 150 kilometers an hour. So if you're going to drive it at 130 kilometers an hour, it's going to be burning through that battery energy quite fast. I don't know just how fast, but it's not going to be fun. But as I said, this is meant to be a city car, and in terms of charging, it can take up to 85 kilowatts on a fast charger, which means you can replenish the car's battery up to 80% in about half an hour, which is great. Other than that, of course, you can use an 11 kilowatt charger, a 20 kilowatt charger, and so on, and the times will vary. But the fastest charging power is 85 kilowatts. That said, is the Fiat 500e a proper city car? I think it is. I think it's a great turning radius. I mean, small turning radius of under 10 meters makes it really easy to drive around town. You have great visibility. You can park it anywhere because it's a small car, and you're going to be doing all of your chores around town using electric power alone. So I think it's worth a look over if you're interested in a small electric city car. What are its rivals? Well, plenty of them. You have the Peugeot E208, you have the Opel Corsa E, which are its brothers in the Stellantis group right now. You have the Renault Zoe, you have the Mini Electric, which is a lot more powerful and more fun to drive, and you have the Honda E, which is a lot more expensive because it's a more premium feeling car. So you have plenty of choices. All you have to do is pick which one fits you best. I think I've given you plenty of information to make an informed decision. So let me know in the comment section below which one you would pick out of these cars, and let's start a conversation about electric city cars. Until next time, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.